And in the meantime, why don't we get to another track here, man?
Sounds good.
This is Loveboat by Julian Cope.
From the mothership stepped a freak, a government leak. It says our planet may be doomed, so we're coming to you.
We arrive next week
With our husbands
and our wives.
Help us please to lead better lives.
For days and days we waited, our fingers crossed and our breath bated.
Well, the days went by, but we never saw that mothership. Oh, no saucers in the sky or even any other ship. But our arms were open wide, and we had this sense of pride. And soon the world was filled with love and brothership. This loving feels me good. When will they come? I only hope they would. Then one day as I was walking across the Marlborough Downs, I felt the earth a-shaking with a crazy sound. The mothership was here, I thought my goose was cooked. But luckily she'd only come for one last look. What did the alien say? Boy, up by feeling. Boy, up by feeling. Boy, up by feeling. Every mother, father, child, your planet existence is running wild. So celebrate the stars, who you are, who you are. This loving feels me good. When will they come? I only hope they would. Oh yeah, but then it's all the same. Well, if they don't come, at least I know my name. Buoyed up by a feeling. Buoyed up by a feeling. Buoyed up by a feeling.
That was Julian Cope off his Interpreter album, Loveboat. How's it going, Mike?
Good.
Cool. Well, I mean, I guess you mentioned before the break that one of the other things we wanted to talk about, and this is something we really want to focus on this show, is the interview this week with Peter Mansbridge and Stephen Harper.
Yeah, that was disturbing.
Yeah, man, my gag reflexes were in overdrive while I listened to that, man.
Yeah, it sent me kind of for a bit of a loop or a spin. I mean, I couldn't believe how. I mean, some people even commented and said, "Oh, great job, Peter, for holding Stephen Harper to account." But I might have listened to a different interview.
Yeah, what account?
Yeah,
like I mean, you know, I really want to say, okay, you know, Peter Mansbridge is going to have to play nice in order to get our Prime Minister to talk at all. But, you know, here's the... And that's fine, you know. Take it, for example, a guy like Larry King built his whole career off of building trust with his guests. You know, you went on Larry King, you were going to get nothing but softballs thrown at you. You know what I mean? Just toss up nice and easy that you can hit him out of the ballpark. You go on Larry King and you're going to be able to get out your exact message the way you want to say it. He is beautiful at setting you up. But Larry King wasn't a journalist, you know. In no way, shape, or form did he even consider himself to be a journalist, even though he was on CNN. That's like news infotainment kind of channel, you know what I mean? But the CDC should be held to a higher standard than, say, Larry King on CNN. First of all, our tax dollars pay for it. So it should never be considered a platform for one party or one politician to express their viewpoint in an unhindered fashion. Especially with someone who's built such a level of trust with the Canadian people. lending credibility to the ideas by not challenging them at all.
Exactly. That seems to be the most dangerous portion right there. The fact that, like you said, Peter Mansbridge obviously has to be able to, I'm sure that the questions are given to Stephen Harper before he comes on. Stephen Harper is notorious for avoiding journalists, and Peter Mansbridge obviously has access to him.
Yeah.
That access might not happen if Peter Mansbridge was a bit harder.
Exactly, and now you can tell. Like I want to seize on your point that you made, that you believe that Harper got the questions in advance. I don't doubt that. You know how you can tell? Because there was no follow-up done. There was no follow-up questions based on the answers that Stephen Harper gave. You know?
Exactly.
So it's a dead giveaway right there. And I'm not saying that. Well, I mean, it is. I'm sure there's someone that can defend the practice of handing the questions to Harper before he goes on. You know,
even if
I just don't know the argument that defends that. You know?
I think that the only argument, and it's not to say that it's right, but the only argument to say as to why would be you simply just don't get the interview without that happening. Stephen Harper is not going to enter into an interview on any serious issues or any issues. They don't even have to be serious. This is and that may be the actual point here, is that Peter Mansbridge, in doing this, it kind of lightens the criticism of Stephen Harper. Here's a man who doesn't give access to the media, and then when we do see him, we see him in this comfortable, easygoing interview that just moves through the questions. And the only other thing I want to say here too is, if you go back and you watch that interview, Stephen Harper cuts off Peter Mansbridge quite often and doesn't even allow him to say a lot. And that's not to say that Peter Mansbridge was going to go anywhere difficult for him, but even in a soft interview like this, Stephen Harper jumps in on Peter Mansbridge and just kind of takes control of the reins.
Well, there's no question that anyone who listened to that would not have any doubts as to who the man was in that conversation and who the boy was. You know what I'm saying? And and Peter Mansbridge was so tippy-toe around anything that could be construed as perhaps sensitive to the conservative agenda, and it was unbelievable. I've pulled some clips out of the interview that I'd like to play and get your reaction to them.
Sure.
And of course, my major concern was, yeah, sure, okay, well, on the whole. What else did they talk about? They talked about the pipeline. Okay,
they
whatever.
started
that's
off
all,
with the pipeline.
Yeah, that's all predictable. Whatever, and okay, I take that. And then they went to then they went to Iran, and then they went to the whole thing about Stephen Harper's like what I would describe as Stephen Harper's contempt for the democratic process in his refusal to negotiate the healthcare funding plan with the provinces. And then they went to the upcoming meeting with First Nations leaders, and then they were done. But there was, out of those four subjects, there's one of them that's going to involve mass murder. So if you thought that it might be appropriate for Mansbridge to show some integrity on any of the subjects, it would be the Iranian subject, because that involves war and mass murder.
Wholeheartedly agree.
So, listen, well, I'm just going to play the first clip, and we'll be back after it and talk about it.
I saw that in an interview in the last couple of weeks, when you were talking about Iran, you said that in your view, they want nuclear weapons, and they would not be shy about using them.
That is my belief.
If they had them.
Yes.
I found that interesting because one of the last times we talked, you suggested that one of the concerns you had about the past, about decisions you've made in the past, was that you took perhaps too much belief in intelligence reports that you got. And we're talking specifically about Iraq. Yeah. But on this one, to say what you've said, are you confident in the intelligence you've seen to be convinced that A, they want nuclear weapons, and B, they would use them if they had them?
Whoa, okay. So what just happened there was they set this table to discuss Iran, okay? Peter Mansbridge very kindly reminded Stephen Harper and everyone listening that this is a whole different situation than Iraq. The faulty intelligence of Iraq doesn't necessarily mean that that there's going to be faulty intelligence here, and Peter Mansbridge just wants to know that the intelligence that Stephen Harper gets to see that we will never get to see, does he trust it? Is it different? Is it better? Should we trust what? Should we be behind this? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen Harper, or Mansbridge, also says for him, they're making the weapons and they're willing to use them.
Which is a stance that Stephen Harper has taken, and maybe I don't know if this is the place to get into it right here, but I would like to say that I don't believe in any unified field conspiracy theories. I believe in competing interests in the world, and as much as United States and Israel are obviously allied, that doesn't mean that they don't have competing interests in moving forward on different issues such as Iran. And I would argue that Stephen Harper is leaning towards Israel's position over the United States' position.
No. He's close. Like, it's really clear right now that that even though Barack Obama has not done a single decent thing so far in his presidency, he may be the only thing right now standing between peace and war with Iran. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It appears that he does not get along well with Netanyahu, and he is resisting so far. Right?
Yeah, and there are other indications in the United States intelligence community and within their own government that, Leon Panetta, the U.S. Defense Secretary, has come right out and said that he does not believe that Iran is currently developing a nuclear weapon. And, he went on to say that, of course, that's a red line for them if they ever did. And that distinguishes itself from Israel's policy. I mean, there's no definitive proof as of right now, but the fifth nuclear scientist was assassinated in for over 2 years. 5 have been assassinated in Iran. And, Israel always comes out with these kind of snarky replies where they don't deny it, but they kind of say they're not upset about it, leading one to think that there's a really good chance that the Mossad or some other element of Israeli military power is involved, and the United States came out and totally distanced themselves from that assassination, and you can see that there are some differences occurring between American and Israeli policy on Iran.
Yeah,
that's not to say that America doesn't also have a drum that they beat on about Iran.
And let's not be mistaken here. The covert war against Iran has already been going on for 5 years. So these assassinations are just part of that. And people will notice if they take a look at our Facebook profile that I have posted an interview with Seymour Hersh, and he talks about the politicization of the intelligence that's coming out of the United Nations. Now, with Mohammed al-Baradei as the head of the IAEA during the Bush presidency, they did not have an ally on the IAEA. The intelligence was fact-based, and was not spun in such a way as to lend itself to the war effort. However, that's different. You hear Seymour Hersh discuss. I won't play any clips or discuss it in too much depth, but I really recommend to people to check out the Seymour Hersh interview, where he talks about the exact nature of this supposedly new intelligence that's come out. Basically, it's the same old stuff, but now that the Americans have been able to install their own head of the IAEA, it comes out with a political spin to it. You know what I mean? Where they read in the intentions of Iran. And one thing that's happening in this interview right now we're discussing with Mansbridge and Harper is that Mansbridge is allowing him to freely speculate as to what the Iranian intentions would be if they had nukes.